In the immortal words of the great Chris Hardwick, let's take a moment and reflect on who we lost this week.
I will remember you. Will you remember me? Don't let your life pass you by. Weep not for the memory.
What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz, Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check with your April 18th, 2018 first real NXT after WrestleMania weekend review. And everything's a little short and sweet on this week's episode, but everything makes me really, really excited about NXT. I mean, I make a lot of jokes about how NXT got gutted in the shakeup and in the Raw and SmackDown, respectively, after WrestleMania, but we're still in pretty good hands. I mean, let's look at the opening segment tonight. Gargano and LeRAE come out. Big, huge welcome back. Johnny Wrestling, Candice, Mrs. Wrestling, Candice Wrestling chants all over the place. And Gargano does something that they do really, really good on NXT. WWE kind of has us conditioned that when you have somebody come out to talk about something really positive, to celebrate, etc., it's just a setup for a conflict segment. Somebody's going to come in and interrupt them, somebody's going to come in and interrupt them, and before you know it, it's as bad as old school Impact Wrestling. That's not what this was. Gargano just kind of set the table. He's back in the company, thanks his wife, and talks about where he's going to go from here. First of all, he talks about his match with Ciampa, talks about how it's good to be back home in NXT, talks about how he's no longer defined by his friendship and partnership and his, subsequent parting with Tommaso Ciampa, talks about their match at NXT Takeover, doesn't shrug that off, talks about it being the 37 most intense minutes of his entire career. I'm not very familiar with Johnny Gargano before NXT. I'm not familiar with him at all before NXT, so I don't know how true that is, but whatever. Talks about how the fans kept him going, the big sea of Johnny Gargano, the emoji signs, but then he turns his attention to his wife. And in Full Sail, as I've said before, Gargano has been fully adopted by that crowd, and, by association, so is Candice LeRAE, which is great because she just got to the company. His unfinished business of thanking his wife and pulling him through and all that sort of thing. But her unfinished business is taking on ZELINA Vega, which is going to happen later on tonight. Johnny Gargano also says, he's got to cross one more thing off his bucket list, and that's becoming NXT champion now that all the, the hurdles are out of the way. And it's good. And that, he sort of, salutes off the crowd, soaks in a couple more cheers. There's a whole lot of welcome back chants, and that's the end of the segment. Now, because WWE has us so conditioned to expect more, to expect a conflict, to expect an argument, to expect an interruption, when it doesn't happen, it's discerning at first, because you're like, oh, you're almost let down, because you get yourself, fired up for what's going to happen next. It's kind of like the fans at WrestleMania that were all fired up to hate on Roman Reigns winning the title. And then Roman Reigns didn't win the title, and they didn't know what to do with all their year of pent-up frustration. But that's entertaining more than anything else. This is good. Once you realize that you've got nothing to be disappointed by, you look back on this segment, and it's just fucking nice. You got Johnny Gargano, who is, at least in my opinion, on equal babyface footing with Daniel Bryan. A lot of people are going to disagree with me on that one because of the emotional tidal wave that somebody like a Daniel Bryan is riding right now. I really thought he was going to be drafted to Raw, but that's another story for another day. But Gargano did as well, and while he did in kayfabe, he didn't actually retire and come back and ride that wave like Daniel Bryan does. So Daniel Bryan's story, tragically, has more going for it right now, right immediately, from the real world. Gargano is over just as the character he is. That's why I say he's on par. I wouldn't say he's past Daniel Bryan. I'm not going that far. Please let me be clear on that. But Man, in another universe, there's like Gargano and Ciampa versus Bryan and Punk. Just think about that for a second. First match of the night is Ricochet making his Full Sail debut. I mean, it's not his debut because he debuted at the pay-per-view. He's also done house shows, and as I say, I saw him fight, what the hell's his name? Buddy Murphy at the NXT Mississauga show a while ago, and thank God they gave him better music before they put him on TV. It's all good. He's taking on Fabian Eichner. Now, I kind of feel bad for Fabian Eichner in the sense that, you know, I'm really starting to like Fabian Eichner, the little bit that we see him, but you know he's going in up against Ricochet, he's the new big name that they've brought in. He's the new Finn Balor, the new Kevin Owens, the new Shinsuke Nakamura in that realm. So he's going to go down. But this match, for the short time that it was pretty damn good. Let's talk about it. Collar double type and a side headlock by Ricochet that he turns into a head scissor. Chops by Fabian and a gutbuster and a mudhole stomp. Corner chops by Ricochet. A tilt-a-whirl backbreaker by Fabian. Seated gut wrench submission move by Fabian and gets escaped by Ricochet with some back elbows. Drop kick by Ricochet, forearms, a lariat, and a modified 619, which they called something else on commentary that I cannot currently remember. I said it on my 205 live review. I'm going to say it again tonight. No Nigel McGuinness on commentary this week. You just got Percy Watson and Mauro Ranallo. They gave a shout out to him. They said he's not here tonight because he's learning how to change the diapers of his kid, which I thought was a nice, neat little shout out. They didn't have to do it on camera or anything like that, but they gave him a quick shout out during this match, which I thought was nice. Where was I? Dropkick by Ricochet, forearms, lariat, and the modified 619, as I said. Springboard European upcart and a standing star press by Ricochet. And then he follows up with the 630 splash, which, my God. I know I always say this when somebody new is coming in, and I always talk to people because I don't watch indies, except for Destiny. Go watch Destiny. I didn't do any house cleaning, but anybody in the GTA, go watch the Destiny show. It's coming up real soon. Actually, I'm going to say that not this coming weekend, but the following weekend is a great weekend for me because we're going to get the greatest Royal Rumble, brother. And then 2 days later, we are going to get Destiny Icons, which is going to be fucking fantastic with Pete Dunne, Marty Scurll, and Mustache Mountain taking on Sami Callihan and Josh Alexander. And I will say one more time, and I know I sound like all the indie fans that I make fun of. If you don't know who Josh Alexander is, he's from right here in the Toronto, Mississauga area. Just look him up. Look up some of the stuff on the Destiny Facebook page and watch this guy. The guy's a fucking tank. It's good. Anyways, that's 630 Splash, which is getting back to my point because I'm wandering. Many people, the ones that told me I have to go watch Ricochet versus Will Ospreay. It's the same as the people that told me I gotta watch, you know, Okada versus Kenny the Beta, which I'm not gonna do just because people tell me to. But they're like, watch out for this guy's 630 Splash. And I'm like, Are they gonna let him do that in NXT? I mean, NXT's pretty awesome, lets them get away with a lot of fucking shit, but it is still a WWE product. 630 Splash is fucking ridiculous. Obviously, Ricochet gets the win here. We see the replay of the War Raiders from last week. Now, I will say, I was all set to do an NXT review last week. It's sort of hit and miss with the NXT episodes that are taped right before a takeover. They're done in the bigger building. They usually feel great, but it's a whole lot of filler and a couple of matches. And the only thing worth mentioning was the debut of the War Raiders. Now, this was met with mixed reviews from a lot of people that I know, because a lot of people, like I say, watch ROH, etc. And apparently War Machine is, you know, a force to be reckoned with, and you know, for my sake, they were comparing them to people like Legion of Doom, people like Demolition, more recently people like AOP, etc. But I still wasn't familiar with them personally. They get on my side immediately last week by beating up the Jobbers, aka Jobberelli and Gimmick Lost. Oh yes, I was really hoping that we were going to see them take on Heavy Machinery. Because, you know, big team versus big team, you know, 4 big boulders crashing into each other would be good. But also, I have heard a rumor that the reason that they are not called War Machine anymore in NXT is because they've already got a tag team with the word machine in it, which is Heavy Machinery, and apparently Vince or whoever or Triple H didn't want 2 teams of such similar stature with such similar names, which I think is kind of silly. But I mean, a lot of things that WWE does with names is silly. Now, what I gather, like, watching these guys in just one match is basically they're like rocker Vikings. If I'm missing the mark on that one, please tell me. But you know, they come up with the beard, the big ass beard, the big nomad beards, and the war paint and all that. And it's really, really cool. Really cool presentation. War Raiders is another name that they've come up with for NXT that doesn't really roll off the tongue. But I'm sure we'll all get used to it. But they are taking on 2 jobbers tonight. Like I say, I would have loved to see them squash the Jobberelli and Gimmick Loss team again, or have a car crash with Heavy Machinery, which would have also been fun. But they're facing 2 jobbers that look like somebody put Deuce and Domino in the dryer for too long. That's what happened there. Zero offense from these guys because that's not what they're there for. Bicycle kick by Rowe. I'm hoping I pronounce it Rowan Hansen. I've heard the name Warbeard Hansen, but I'm pretty sure, War Raiders, they're not also going to put war in one of their names. So it's probably going to be like Harper and Rowan on SmackDown. It's probably just going to be Rowe and Hansen, which is fine. Bicycle kick by Rowe, snap, headlock takeover, gut shot by Hansen, and a cartwheel into a lariat. I love seeing big dudes do something like a cartwheel. It doesn't add to the offense, but it adds to that whole, hey, I'm a big guy, you think you know what to expect from me, well, check this shit out. They do a double team, and there's 2 sets of double team moves that they do here, and I'm going to try and explain both of them because that's what I try to do. But the first one I can only describe as a double team pop-up jackhammer or pop-up fall-away slam. I'm sure there's a tag team name for it, or they have a name for it. Maybe it's the Warhammer. I have no fucking clue. But the second one is a top rope guillotine side slam combo, which ultimately gets them the win. Both of them look pretty damn good, but what I would love to say is flip that, as if I can use a video game reference, you got your signature and then you got your finisher. That guillotine slam should be the signature, and the finisher should be that pop-up jackhammer because it looks fucking sick. And these guys, to their credit, the jobbers on the other half of the ring took a beating quite well. We have a really, really cool scene in the back where it's sort of one of those... it's a selfie stick, but not selfie stick backstage promo with Shayna Baszler, who talks about how, hey, all the women's division is having a meeting in the locker room right now. I'm a bit late, but I don't give a shit. Look what a badass I am. Look what a rebel I am, etc. Walks into the dressing room, rips Ember Moon's name off of her locker area, sticks a Queen of Spades in the name card holder, and then starts just berating the entire division. Dakota Kai leaves, and then she talks some shit to her, and whatever. I mean, I would love it if they pushed Dakota Kai. I really would. I don't think they're going to, or at least not yet. I think they're going to put her in sort of the Dolph Ziggler, Tyler Breeze position, but I mean, you got to watch that because look what's going on with those guys right now. I mean, Ziggler's doing a Shawn Michaels Diesel gimmick with McIntyre, which we're going to talk about at a later date. Please stay tuned. Probably tomorrow, if not Friday, I'm going to have myself, Christian, Guapo. We are going to talk everything. We are going to talk TakeOver. We're going to talk WrestleMania, the results, the days following WrestleMania, the Superstar Shakeup, and we will touch on that very controversial Greatest Royal Rumble. So please join me for that. Sullivan versus Dane in a no DQ match. Now, these guys had a match before TakeOver, and it was broken up by the other 4 members of that North American title ladder match, which was a fucking awesome match with about 10 million, okay, my God, he's dead moments, which is always fun. But it meant that these guys never got to finish their individual issue, which is fine, because we say we're going to give them a rematch in a no disqualification situation, and we are going to get that wrecking ball type match that I wanted to see a couple of matches ago, which is fine. Headbutts and jabs by Dane and a forearm and a lariat. They trade some punches on the outside. Sullivan eats the steps. Suicide dive by... Okay, Killian Dane doing a suicide dive is fucking terrifying. Can I just put that out there? But even more terrifying is somebody that size doing a suicide dive and getting caught, because that's what happened, because Sullivan caught him in the suicide dive. Sullivan spears him into the ring post on the outside after the catch. Snap vertical suplex on the floor by Sullivan. Back in the ring, we got some cross-face blows to both sides of the head by Sullivan. Deadlift belly to back suplex by Sullivan. Holy Christ. Killian Dane ain't a small boy. Deadlift suplex. It's fucking ridiculous. He does the diving headbutt. He does the Benoit diving headbutt, which is fantastic. And at that point, Killian Dane's also busted open. Chair shots by Sullivan to remind us that it's a hardcore match. Bicycle kick by Dane, and they trade some punches. And then we get a sequence from Dane. Wasteland, Senton, Vader Bomb. All does not get the pin. I am really sorry, guys. I know I sound like shit, and I'm trying to get through this as fast as I can. Chair shots by Dane and a side slam by Sullivan. Sullivan headbutt misses. He goes for that Benoit-style headbutt again. He misses, and he headbutts the steel chair. Eats a boot by Dane. Dane crossbodies Sullivan through the propped-up table in the corner. Mudhole stomps with the chair. He thinks about doing a coast-to-coast, but then he gets cut off. Instead, he punches him through the chair, which is great, but Sullivan gets the upper hand, lays down 2 chairs in the ring on top of each other, hits the freak accident on top of those 2 chairs, and Sullivan is your winner. Now, with what we now know about Sanity, that makes total sense. Sullivan's the one that's going to stay where he's at. Great victory. I still say Sullivan needs something. Because he's such a big, gigantic dude, I think they go out of their way to make him appear incredibly plain, if that makes sense. I mean, if you look at a guy like Andre the Giant, other than his size, he looked pretty plain. You know, his promos were you know, undiscernible promos, really, and he just got sold on the fact that he was fucking massive, and that's enough. And I think that's why they purposely don't put much else into him. He doesn't have any real creative ring gear. His entrance music, I could take or leave, really. They don't put any other flash into him, so that the only thing you have to focus on is his size and his power, and I think that's smart. I think that's really smart, because anything else, any other gimmicks you give him are going to take away from that main point. It's a good thing. He's not flashy. He doesn't really catch my mind in a creative way. He just makes me think that he's going to kill somebody, and it fucking works. Next week, the first of a couple big things for next week, Undisputed Era is going to return. Apparently, we're going to hear from Roderick Strong and why he turned on Pete Dunne and all that sort of thing. You know, Undisputed Era right now is draped in a lot of gold, let's just say that. Also, Adam Cole is going to defend his NXT North American Championship for the first time against Oney Lorcan. Feel really bad for Oney Lorcan, because we know how that is going to go. Now, that isn't the last thing we have to look forward to next week, but I'll get to that when we get to it. Our main event is Candice LeRae herself versus the Spanish Trish Stratus, Zelina Vega. There's a shoving match to start, a takedown by LeRae, but immediately Almas pops up on the side of the ring for the distraction. Zelina gets the upper hand. Gargano joins Almas at ringside and sort of keeps him at bay. Dragon Sleeper by Vega, corner backdrop by LeRae, Nidiora, which is that double knee spot, the one that Vega does, the one that Almas does, the one that also Sasha Banks does quite a bit. Just call it the double knees. The name Nidiora is way more gimmicky than it should be. They trade some punches for a while, and then there's a beatdown by LeRae, a top rope drop kick by LeRae, a head scissor, and she locks in the Gargano escape. But not to be outdone, Almas hits the ring, Gargano hits the ring, Gargano puts Almas in the Gargano escape, double Gargano escapes, LeRae gets the win over Vega, and they basically fuck off, and we know where they're going now. Gargano comes in, grabs the microphone, cuts another promo, high-fives his wife and tells her that she's fucking awesome, and then he gets down to his last little bit of business, calling out Aleister Black. Aleister Black says, not only do I accept, but we're going to do that next week. So what do we have for next week? We've got the return of the Undisputed Era. We've got the sort of debut of the North American Championship on week-to-week TV. We've got Adam Cole versus Oney Lorcan, and now, for the NXT Championship, we've got Aleister Black versus Johnny Gargano. What more do you want from a weekly show? This show's been fucking amazing. My voice sounds like shit, so I'm going to call it quits for tonight. I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I'm tagging out. Bye, guys.